I'm Nate.
And I'm Ari.
And today, we'd like to talk to you about Romanticism.
Specifically, we're going to talk about Romanticism as it relates to British culture. Where did it come from, and where did it go?
What impression did it leave on the English language and literature as we know it today?
What can we learn from Romanticism, and what even is Romanticism?
Well, to answer these questions, we need to start at the beginning.
Long ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Okay, maybe not that long ago, maybe closer to 200 or so years ago.
Around the French Revolution?
Right. All these different forms of art had their super high school level peak, and that peak was called the Romantic Era.
That still doesn't answer the question. What even is Romanticism and the Romantic Era?
So the term Romanticism was coined in the 1840s, but the movement has really been around since the 1790s. And it really picked up in the late 1790s, specifically in 1798, when Lyrical Ballads was written by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Lyrical Ballads is generally credited with starting the movement of Romanticism in British literature, actually. The basic concept of Romanticism is that reason cannot explain everything. The artists in this period appealed more to the subconscious by putting emphasis on emotions, imagination, and nature. Romantic era writers were dealing with some pretty heavy stuff.
Like an industrial revolution and an actual revolution.
Yeah, and the idea of just letting their lives be led by new technology was pretty boring to them, honestly.
Yeah, that's definitely not something we're familiar with.
Most of the writings at these times focused on the innovation that was occurring. People were bringing science to the forefront and doing away with organized religion, and that was pretty rad for most of the people involved.
Oh, so this also meant that the artist didn't really matter as much, because the focus was on the big city and the industrialization.
Right, so this idea of Romanticism, idealizing the simple life and moving away from that idea of industrialization, it was very appealing to a lot of people.
And so, Romanticism was born.
I previously mentioned the Industrial Revolution as one of the big influences on Romanticism, and it really was. Authors of that time were looking for the switch that occurred from appreciation of man and nature to reliance on machinery and technology.
During these times, novelists like Charles Dickens warned society of consequences associated with abandoning human emotions and adopting the way of machines in novels like Hard Times.
And William Wordsworth, another prevalent author at the time, did a lot of writing about where introspective artists, like himself I guess, belonged in a time such as the mechanical age he was living in.
And Mary Shelley, author of Frankenstein, wrote about how the defiance of natural law was probably a terrible idea.
Yeah, the more you think about Frankenstein, the weirder it gets.
I don't know if I want to think about this anymore. Moving on.
Besides the Industrial Revolution, the other major influence on the Romantic movement was the French Revolution.
Now, the French Revolution didn't necessarily involve Great Britain until 1793, when France declared war on them, but the ideas of that time were definitely a major factor in the Romantic style.
Oh, okay, so you're an expert on this one. William Wordsworth, who talked about the idea of the mechanical age and the Industrial Revolution, also had some thoughts about the French Revolution.
Yeah, as a romantic, Wordsworth believed in the equality of all men. He saw the monarchy as a means of taking that equality.
So he was initially very supportive of the French Revolution. But of course, France eventually turned against Britain as well, and Wordsworth realized that, this may affect me negatively. Time to stop supporting it.
But really, he did become torn between his ideas of freedom and equality and all the bloodshed around him. He became very concerned with preserving the stability and order of England instead.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened to William Blake, too.
He was originally very fond of the revolution as well. He feared authority and thought he would be persecuted for his beliefs. He sympathized with English radicals such as Thomas Paine and William Goodwin.
Right. But when the Reign of Terror happened, his attitudes changed. Like Wordsworth, he became focused on stability and conservatism. Most of those radical beliefs he had went away.
But after all of this was said and done, Romanticism has some very cool impacts on the English language.
Yeah, authors of the Romantic era were very inspired to write in their own styles, and that's something that remained even when people started to move on to Victorian literature.
And the social progress that came from the French Revolution stuck around, even if it wasn't as extreme. The ideas that French philosophers held were given a broader audience and found their place in popular literature.
And many of the ideas that Romantics held still stick around to this day. I say that personally, Romanticism is making a huge comeback.
For sure. Just look at all the online subcultures like cottagecore and goblincore and many other cores.
Yeah, the list is huge, and some of these subcultures have grown so much that they've been featured in the New York Times.
Really? When you look at these small movements, the idea boils down: take the time to step away from technology and appreciate the other things in your life.
I know that personally, this has meant getting involved with a frog-themed pen pal program, which sounds weird, but it's actually really helped me a lot. Stepping away from these much quicker forms of communication that we have right now, and putting love into a letter that takes a little bit longer to arrive, it's really helped my mental health.
Yeah, these movements do tend to be heavily made up of young women and LGBT youth as well. It's kind of a safe haven on the internet.
And I think that's pretty much what Romanticism is. Like, that's the goal. It's a safe haven where you can aspire to these idealized lives of simplicity and social progress. I feel like these older authors would be proud of these online subcultures today. If you take a minute to look at them, even in their many homes on the internet, that's Romanticism.
For sure. Thanks so much for watching and have a lovely day.